Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, it being Thursday, September 12th at 6:35. It doesn't? Does it sound like, no? Let me check that. Want to check it?
Nope.
There we go.
Yep.
Yep.
You're live.
Take two. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, it being Thursday, September 12th at 6:35 p.m. I'm Counselor Linda Vacon, Chair, and with me I have Counselors Bartley, Counselors Murphy, and Counselors Leahy. Counselor McGivern is also present in the chambers with us tonight. Okay. Not having any minutes before us, I think we've taken care of all the ones that we have had so far. In the chambers, we do have some folks who have agenda items, and I don't see the person who has the
Cell tower.
primary interest in number 2. So I would entertain a motion to go out of order and take up one of the orders of the folks that are here. Let us see. Well, Jesus was here first. So we could go, if it is the will of the body, to the last 2 on the agenda, which are his. Is there a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
So item 11 was filed by Counselor McGee, order that section 82-5A be amended to increase the allowable abatement limit from 1,000 to 1,500 pursuant to an amendment to MGL 59, section 5N. Item 12, filed by Counselor Tallman, order that the City Council accept Mass General Law, section 21C, looks like and a half, but. That item is referring to employees who are veterans, participation in Veterans or Memorial Day exercises, time off granted, exceptions, section 21C and a half, an employee of a city or town which accepts the provisions of this section who is a veteran as defined in clause 43rd of section 7 of chapter 4, or is a member of a Department of War veterans listed in section 17 of chapter 8, and who desires to participate in a Veterans Day or Memorial Day exercise, parade, or service may be allowed and granted a reasonable and sufficient period of time off from his duties to attend and participate in such services or exercises. This section shall not apply to employees whose duties and services are critical and essential to the public safety as determined by ordinance or bylaw, and the city or town may determine whether such time shall be with or without pay. So we have those 2 orders before us, and Jesus, thank you for coming on down.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for having me.
And
Would you like me to address both of them?
sure.
Okay, we'll sum this up. Basically, the end of 2018, in August, the governor signed the BRAVE Act, which did a multitude of things, but the 2 that we're talking about tonight is, 1, increasing the amount of tax abatement someone could get on their property if they do the volunteer tax program under the Veterans Department from $1,000 up to $1,500. In the same act, we also have a new addition that allows those individuals who work for the city to be given the time off to participate in Memorial Day or Veterans Day events. With or without pay, that's up to the department. And of course, if they're of high importance and they're needed necessary for work, you don't have to grant them the time, but
Have we had an issue with this being a problem?
no, it's just the latter one I was just talking about is brand new in the Mass General Law, so it's just adopting it for the sake of
So you
adopting
just
it.
want to just sort of stay current?
Right. Now, the only thing I would have to say about the tax abatement one is that in city ordinance right now, when it was written, it was verbatim what was written in the Mass General Law. So, when you read, it's section 82-5, it says we adopt blah, 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 limited to $1,000, so on and so forth. I would suggest to prevent having to keep coming back every time that the master law changes, that we just adopt the master law itself.
Well, we could, but it is a good idea for us to know how much we're encumbering into the department. How would we know otherwise?
Well, you can get updates every time session law is updated. So if there's
Who would tell us that, you?
I would, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm involved with the state when they go through their bills, and if there's anything that's relevant to veteran services, we can update you because we get the bill with the updates.
Okay. Any questions from anybody?
Just in,
Councilor Murphy?
and so the tax abatement is this is just for veterans, this particular.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's the work-off, right?
Yes.
Okay. And on the second one, is there a time frame for is it like they get Veterans Day and Memorial Day off, or they get to go to ceremonies during those times?
They would be granted the time off to participate in those events.
In the event?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve both.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was easy. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Don't say we never did anything for you. Okay, if we want to continue,
Look at the department heads here, I don't know if you want to.
we can go to building department if you want. I think they have, what, one?
Which number is that?
I don't know.
I can figure it
Why are
out.
you-
Not
Which
quite.
item are you here for? Oh, okay.
Eight.
Some measures?
Item number 8.
So if we want to go out of order and take
Sure, I'll
that
make
up?
a motion to suspend, take up item number 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item 8 was filed by Counselor McGivern, and the order was that we review and update, if necessary, Section 102-34, the collection of fees, fee schedule of Chapter 102, weights and measures of the Code of Ordinances. This fee schedule was last updated in 1997.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We also have a handout that Ryan was able to obtain. Yeah. I think Joe has it. If you need it. You can have it. That is, so the handout is from Northampton, and I guess what,
Northampton, Chicopee, and Westfield.
I'm sorry?
Northampton, Chicopee, and Westfield.
Oh, okay.
Hard to read Westfield, but you know, that's typical for Westfield.
Oh, okay. Well, you can get the general gist, I guess. Okay, so we do have fees from Northampton, Chicopee, and Westfield, as well as, I think you just gave us the Holyoke fees, Mr. Cody?
So what you have is, Mike McManus actually put this together, this cover sheet,
Oh, Mike, do you want to come in too, or,
and he had some part to do with it.
whatever,
Up to him.
if you want, you can. Okay.
So that's what we're saying, is our existing rates, and it's not all of them, but these are the bigger ones, the major ones, whatever, and the proposed rate, and that's based on the second sheet, okay? This second sheet is, I have all of the cities and towns in the state
Oh.
that participate. Now, it's small, if you want to read it. If you can't, I brought some magnifying glasses in my bag here, if you need them, but I can read it, but it is small. So the purple, there's a line across the, I guess, 40% down is Holyoke. And the bottom numbers are the averages of like towns, and so nothing's really high on what we're suggesting. In 1972 was the date last for our ordinance that covers the fees.
So the only thing is, now that I'm looking at the numbers, it's an alphabetical listing. It's not actually, like Holyoke isn't in the middle because of our rates. It's just the alphabetical listing, and H is falling close to the middle there, right?
Right. Yeah, they're not in order by anything else, just the name of the town.
And you said it was last updated in 1972, not 1997?
No, 1972 is our weights and measures ordinance was last, which
Oh,
is
okay.
And all the other towns even have the date there that it was last updated. They're listed, well, most of them are there. And I mean, there's nobody anywhere close to the 70s where people typically update every 10 years. So, so these, if it's accurate, these in here, I haven't seen, should be in this giant Excel sheet. But that's what we derived the numbers from.
Okay. So I'm just, does
I see.
anybody else have, I'm not seeing anybody, so I'll just ask, is this gonna have any kind of a chilling effect on any of the businesses in the city? Because this changes look to be significant, even though I'm not saying they're unreasonable. I'm just wondering, is it gonna be a sticker shock effect?
Well, I'm sure that, you know, if you've been accustomed to paying $30 for a fee for almost 50 years, and now you're paying 100, there's going to be, you know, they're going to say, hey, what happened? Well, the ordinance got changed.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but what I'm wondering is, in any of these examples, because I don't totally get necessarily what it's going for, is it possible that that proposed rate per pounds could translate into, the 200 could translate into 1,000 because there's more pounds, or is it a flat annual fee that we're looking at on this chart?
These are based on schedules in sealing, and not all of these are annual. Some are beyond that. I'm not going to try and, you know, we don't have a weights and measures sealer. It was a part-time person for a long time, and about 3-4 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, they retired. So that was a part-time position. And since the state is now doing that, the same as they would if it's kind of a, you know, a takeover in that sense, because we have to have this work done. So on that, I can't rattle off to you every schedule, but yes, to answer your question, somebody may have multiple. One example would be, you know, when you look at a Stop and Shop, it's by the registers, right? Or when they have scales at the deli, if they have 5, you're gonna multiply that times 5.
Okay, but like the over 10,000, if it was 100,000, it wouldn't make it go, say, from 750 to 2,000.
No, it's
There
one.
wouldn't be
It's one scale.
multipliers of that
Yeah,
sort.
that's the size of. It's one
Okay.
scale. It's 200, and that's it. No matter how what it can do. So there's only a few that are actually significant. I like the registers and the scales. The rest are all pretty small.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Counselor McGivern, it was your order, I think, right?
Very quickly, I think, it speaks for itself. Damien and the mayor actually brought it to my attention, and I was surprised. I was in high school in 1972, but it's time to amend them. But the importance of the sewer weights and measures is something I think we take for granted. We pump gas at the gas station. We go to Stop and Shop. We assume the scales, the pumps are all calibrated and all working accordingly. And if someone's not checking them, there's no guarantee they are. And most of the time, it's not going to work in the consumer's favor. It's going to work in the proprietor's favor itself. So I think the costs of what the city is absorbing through, Damien, I think it's the mayor's decision not to fill the position, but is not even being met in terms of how the state is performing the task. And this would, I think it would at least break even, if nothing else, if we brought the fees and up the schedule.
Do we have to pay the state to do this?
Yeah, we're taking a loss, and that's why we want to resolve. This is step 1. Step 2, we're paying $18,000 a flat rate to the state, and through the calculations, we're billing about $4,000. Mike reported to me, so it's been a strange thing because Amy, who works in the DPW, used to take care of the billing when she worked in the treasurer's office, and she just, out of the kindness of her own heart, took all of that work with her to the DPW, which has nothing to do with them. But she's been sending out the bills, but we've been taking a very small amount of money. After we change this, we're still not going to get $18,000. The state is charging a premium because they're paying their person a premium. So step 2 would be we need to resolve the issue of who's providing this service. And Mike has reached out to some, at least one person I have as well, to have meetings with either neighboring towns that have a part-time, or maybe we advertise and hire a 15-hour-week position again. But that's, again, step 2.
Yeah, if we can get below the 18,000. Yep. Counselor Bartley?
Yeah, this is more of a comment, because I appreciate all the background, and I was somewhat familiar with it, though I didn't realize that there was such a funding gap. This is a decision that the mayor made upon taking office. He decided not to fill, this is the current mayor, decided not to fill this position. So it's completely on the mayor that we have a funding gap at this point. I'd rather hear more from step 2 than step 1, as whether we've got a candidate, and if we did have a candidate, what in fact that would cost the city. I think in light of what would likely be an enormous tax increase if the proposed ballot question and bond passes, I think in light of that, I think the message is, and I've always supported, I've never once not supported, these reasonable fees. But in light of this, I think ill-timed tax increase for the public schools, I think that this is just about as bad of a timing as you can come up with. I think the more prudent play would be to sort of see what happens in November, and I think also try to get some feedback from both these fine department heads as to specifically what they have in mind, who they have in mind, and what it would cost to fill the position. Perhaps the mayor could explain at some point why we've been in this situation for, I want to say 5 years, but it's been a number of years, why we've been in this position. I just want to vote, but my opinion is we should table it in committee. I don't want to deny it, because I don't think that's appropriate, but I think we should table it and try to find out some more information.
Anybody else? Counselor Murphy?
So do we have, or can we get a listing of what money we do take in and where it's from and what it's related to, so that we can get an idea of what the impact would be on some of these businesses? I'm sure in some cases it would be minimal, and even in some larger cases it might be pie in the sky for them, but some smaller businesses might be. But could we get an idea as to, if you're telling me, I'm assuming 3 registers, that's a pretty small operation, so it's an extra $25, and that's it. And if they've got 12 registers, I'm going to assume they're doing pretty good business if they got 12 registers. And if they're all operated, which sometimes they aren't, that would be good customer service to have them all operated. So is there a way that we can get an idea as to what we're taking in, and if it's 8,000, is it 10,000? I think you said 4.
4,000 something.
And that's what we're taking in currently?
No, that was
That's a
reported.
gap.
That's the current bills.
So that's our billing.
Okay. You might as well come in.
Needs a mic.
Couldn't escape it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's me.
wait. You can go over.
So we've sent out bills for 2017 and 2018. We have a table of who we sent the bills to, what categories they were billed for, the total bill, whether or not we received payment, and also, I don't have it with me, but the impact they would see if we went to the proposed rates.
To show their billing to us for the 18,000.
So we do have the information, and we can provide that.
I had 17 and 18 with me.
Yeah, this is just,
So each of these.
that's
are
exactly what I was looking for.
individual.
Yeah, no, it's the
This is
bills
2017.
and the state bills.
And there's
That's
28.
2018.
Yeah.
So
These
if you
are-
wanna- that's what they actually billed.
Yeah, and these are individually, so it's not like the mall as a whole gets the bill. It's each
Oh, no, I know.
individual store within the mall.
Yeah,
So for 2018,
depending what they're
do
doing.
we know how much money we actually took in? I don't see that there. and see the dates and the places, but I don't
Just
see,
individual.
I don't see
What you're looking at is, those are the businesses
that,
that the state inspected,
okay,
submitted and said, hey, here's what I took care of, and now pay us the money, right?
right.
So,
And
and
their
then
bill
separately, the bills.
18,000.
So this is
Yeah, it's flat
them
rate.
doing the inspection and billing us.
Right, and then we took that
So then you have to
information,
match this up against what we got.
we took that information and generated individual bills for
Mm-hmm.
each one of those businesses and sent those bills out.
And do they
Those
come-
bills totaled, I think, around $4,000. And
is-
then when we received payment on our ledger, we marked payment received. We haven't received payment for all of the bills that we've sent out. And that's another thing is collections. We don't really have a way of enforcing collections of this.
So,
Okay.
All right. Do
so
you want these back, or do you want them in the record?
You can have them. I have copies by email, so.
Thanks.
So what you're saying is that essentially we have someone from the state coming in and doing the work and billing us a state rate, and the rates at which we're billing the folks in the city with the ordinance that we have currently, there's a $14,000 gap in service.
Approximately, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that this has anything to do with any particular mayor. I mean, this is, over 30 years that we haven't had a change in these rates, and we've been doing this for the fire department. I know that we updated the permit fees in the building department a few years ago. I think that we're just finally starting to review and feel the impact of these discrepancies. So I think it's really important that we move the rates up to what the market is reflecting. And when you look at the mega list, if you will, or even the short list that has Chicopee and Northampton, like Northampton's billing $250 for the scales that are over 10,000 pounds, and we're coming in at 200. Chicopee wasn't as easy for me to find. Their fee is 110
I reduced. Because.
for that same scale over 10,000 pounds.
No, I might have bumped it back up, actually.
18, 17.
Over 10,000 pounds in Westfield is $200 again. So I mean, what I saw on the mega list is what I'm calling the really tiny one that has everybody in the state, is that at the bottom here, there's a calculation of the averages for each of these different weights and measures. And that is the proposed rate that we see in the right side of the sheet that was given to us as the, existing and then proposed. Is that correct? Is this
Right, the
all the
existing
averages?
rate, and it's not all of them, but it's the more common ones at the proposed rate, and it's based on the averages of comparable communities as well. There's little tick marks next to the towns on the left. It's not the entire list, because there's some really, really high rates in some of these towns in the thousands of
I
dollars.
think we want to go.
Those are left out because we're just not, they're like outliers.
So these are like Western Mass. I see Southampton, Westfield, West Springfield. So really our neighbors.
Right, West Springfield, Westfield, and Pittsfield.
Granby.
So not just neighbors, but comparable, what I think, communities. It's not 100% scientific. It's just a good guess at where we should be.
Yeah, and it's not like it's Boston rates
So-
either.
Right.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, I do think that, to not have the fee schedule updated in 30 more years means that this is, it's long overdue. And I think that what we find ourselves doing over and over again in, I would say, the past, 10 years that I've been on the council, we're catching up. I mean, this work hasn't been done in 30, 40, 50 years in some cases. And so it has to be done at some point in time. And I'm sorry if, we have to be the ones to actually, say we're just out of step. We can't even pay somebody an in-house to do the work, and to have somebody from the state come in and bill us at the state rate for the work when we don't have the, the rate set even locally to cover that. It doesn't make sense either way that you cut it.
So, listening to the different comments relative to this, I do think we need to look at updating the rates. On the other hand, I think we've been doing it for the last 3 to 4 years in the most expensive way possible. And I think given CPA, sewer rate increase, valuations going up, that tax increase, and the people being faced with yet another question, I think to an earlier comment made that we do need to look at how we're going to staff it. So if we're going to increase the fees, that we're also bringing some efficiencies to the table on behalf of the taxpayers. Because what we've been doing lately is just going to the taxpayers to fix every problem. And I think we have to look at how we could staff this maybe in a collaborative manner that you referred to try to bring some savings to that 18,000. I'm not sure a regular part-time position could accomplish a lower cost, but I'll leave that to you guys. I mean, sometimes the collaboratives translate into a good savings. So I think there's a good reason just to get a little more information on our billing, our collections. Because the other thing is when we increase the rates and the people that have been paying pay more, but the other people who haven't been paying still aren't paying, it creates another inequity. And how many years did it take us to try to straighten out the sewer one? I know this is a lot smaller, which is in a way a good thing. So I would encourage us to get a little bit more information before we move ahead. I mean, I think it is timely, definitely, to look at it and act on it, but I don't think it's an emergency either. So, Council Murphy.
And just a couple, so do we know when the state actually does these inspections?
I don't get a phone call.
Not in advance, but
So
they
do we-
have a record of the.
Do we just get a listing of where they've gone and not when they've gone?
I think the sheets had the
My
dates that they
understanding.
inspected.
Yeah, that's on those sheets, but, basically what really happens is a lot of these businesses are regulated elsewhere, and sometimes by 2 or 3 entities, so they have to be sealed. So on our end, while we sit in our offices, every day, there's nobody that, we have no obligation to go to the Stop and Shop and say, hey, did you get your thing sealed? Or else we're not going to give you your blank license. It's not tied to us, but it's tied to a lot of other things on the state level. So they're taking it upon themselves. They're going to make sure and get their sealing done because it's going to hold up some sort of regulatory thing that they have to deal with, whether it's getting that fuel delivered or whatnot. And what's missing here is the enforcement wing of it all is that the state inspector is not going out to make sure that folks that should be getting things sealed are getting them sealed. So a lot of people are sort of getting a free ride, and they're doing it. Well, they shouldn't be, but they are, and nobody's going to stop them because there's nobody in our city to take care of that. So we have a gap, and I think we can find. We've alluded to. It's either getting an agreement with another community that has somebody that has a part-time person, and we can contract with them, or seek out, getting an employee means the benefits and all that, but possibly if it's over certain hours. And that's going to take some time to figure out, to find people. I have a meeting with somebody in a couple weeks. Mike's already spoken to one gentleman in a neighboring town.
So one last, so if we were to go on the proposed rates that you've given us, Damien, and do we have an idea how much money we would take in? Is it the 18,000 or would it be less?
It's less. If we were to use those rates
Yeah.
for the last 2018, I remember it being around $12,000.
Okay.
Plus or minus.
With the recommended new rates, right?
Correct.
12,000.
Yeah.
But I think our estimates also would reflect that we can get the services completed at around that range versus the top dollar we're paying the state.
Right.
The problem with these, if you remember back when I started, the building permit fees were around the same year. And I don't know, maybe in 1972 was the year they just did it all, right? But, they changed them, and I knew that this was through the council, and everybody looked at all the evaluations in the same way, and nobody really flinched at them. I could tell you, looking back, that they understood that time was due to have the change of the fees. And none of them were astronomically high. And even when we changed them, just the same as here, we didn't change them above and beyond everybody else's fees. We put them, still were the lowest fees around. I mean, there's most of the towns are higher. So I don't think there's any real, the people that are, Stop and Shop is in every place. There's a Stop and Shop in almost every town. They're not going to flinch at it. They're going to say, oh, now it's just what we're paying over here and there and everywhere else. It's a service that we're providing, professional service.
So if we were just to table it to our next meeting, would that give enough time just to get the information that's been asked so we can move ahead fairly quickly, Mike? I mean, would that be feasible?
As far as the difference between what someone paid in 2018 to what
Well,
they
and
would
what we
pay?
billed out
Yeah.
compared to what they billed us.
Yeah, I
Would
could,
that-
I could have that.
So, okay, Counsel Bartley?
Sorry, thank you, Terry. Yeah, I'll just make I certainly would, I'm a little more encouraged after hearing the building commissioner address this.
Thank you.
But I'm still not gonna change my opinion at this point. So when I hear one department say we have no way to enforce collections, I mean, that is, and then yet bill them, I'm just befuddled by that. I'd also like to get understanding of what it is we paid, because I don't know what we paid the former, when we had an employee for weights and measures. But based upon what I heard tonight, it doesn't sound like it was $18,000. It sounded like it was south of $18,000. Consequently, I stand by my comment, this is totally at the feet of the mayor. He put the situation, as small as it is, this is at the feet of the mayor. There's no debate on that. We had a system, we now have the most expensive system. Not only do we have the most expensive system, we have a system in which we can't collect. We don't know what the collections are. Not only that, we have department heads, the one department head saying, I don't know if we'll break even. I have a second department head saying, I think we'll break even. Gentlemen, respectfully, and I respect you both tremendously, I don't think those answers jibe. I don't think they're sufficient. They're not sufficient for me. I think we've got to get both of you on the same page. If we could do the best we can, to me, it would be a break-even situation. We're not in the money-making business. That's not what we're about, but we're at least in the break-even situation, especially in this day and age. For something as simple as this, we should be able to figure out how to get universal collections. We should know exactly what it costs to run this, and we should be able to figure out how we can either hire somebody or get the Commonwealth to pay for it. This is chump change based upon the budgets that you two respectively run, and you run your budgets very well. I would just say, Madam Chair, I just think we should table this. I certainly, I heard the 1972, it's laughable, we all know that. But I think we just have to get a slightly better game plan in place before we take a final vote.
Is that a motion?
Motion to table.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So everybody's clear on just what information people are looking for, and we'll take it up promptly.
I got billing comparison, and that's from what what we've been billing versus
What we're
we already know what we're paying. It's a flat rate. So
And then the collections, where we're at with that. And then the other thing would be an update on the staffing model
Phase 2.
and how that might move forward.
And if there's a way to work some kind of regional with some other communities that may also be in the same situation, and maybe we can keep our costs down and lower their costs a little bit, and everybody gets a better deal out of it, so.
yeah, I mean, that's gonna, when I say that takes time, because the community agreements are quite complex. But yeah, we started that, the ball's rolling.
Okay.
Just that it's, it's easier to hire your own person. It's just that I think it probably would cost a little more in the end.
Perhaps, yeah. Council Leahy?
Thank you. I just want to say that I think I just think it's a separate order that you're kind of like dipping into. So, and there's one order here to update the rate schedule, and there's nothing in here about, hiring, filling the position, creating an intercommunity agreement to staff the position. So, while I appreciate that we want to get that information, I do think that that would be a separate order to, say that we want to fill and staff that position and put some time into doing that. Secondly, I don't understand, I wish that Councilor Bartley were still here, but I don't understand the comment he made about going to the most expensive system, because what I heard the building commissioner say is that even with the rate increases for the permit fees in the building department that we passed a few years ago, we still have some of the the cheapest rates in the area, not the most expensive. And then in this case, the proposed rates would reflect averages in the area, and again, not be the most expensive system. So I wish I could understand better what he was talking about there.
Well, your point is noted. I think he was talking about how we're getting it accomplished. Because I think the point that Mr. Cody made was that the state is charging a premium. And so that they were looking for a lower cost way to get the work done. Mm-hmm. So it's the staffing model. So granted, the point of the order is not relative to how anybody's doing their positions or their contracts or anything else, but it does relate to the context in which we're going to jack up the rates. So I don't think there's an argument. I just think people want more information relative to that. That's all. So that's my interpretation of it, and we've already voted to table it, so we're kind of we're kind of there at this point. But thank you. All right, so that item is tabled, and we are now ready to take up all the rest of the DPW orders if the committee is so willing.
Do you want to take care of item 9?
9?
At the same time?
Does that relate to?
It's the same order filed by Councilor Sullivan.
Oh, the exact same order that we just discussed?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I would have taken them up as a package. I didn't realize they were exactly the same. So I'd accept a motion to take up item 9 and table it.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Do you have new information about it? Is that what you're saying, Mike?
No.
Okay.
Same order.
All right, thank you.
It is the same, yeah.
Thanks,
All
David.
right, and so we have also,
We have
Is
that
this from-
printed, yes.
oh, all right. I think he took one, but I'm not positive.
I didn't, sorry. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so I think we can start with item 3 and stay in regular order.
Okay.
Motion to take
Take
3
item
after
3?
take, motion to take 3. I'll second Terry's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, filed by me, ordered that speed humps be installed on Lower Westfield Road, Richard Eger Drive, Whitney Ave, and Lynn Ann Drive. You have the floor.
So Bob spearheaded this, and as he says, the volume and speeds are monitored at 3 locations in this neighborhood for a week. There's 2 locations on Lower Westfield Road, one up by the Elks and one on the hill,
Okay,
and 1 location on Richard Eger Road, or Richard Eger Drive. And what they found was that 85th percentile speed was around 28 miles per hour, and that the average speed varied from 22 to 24 miles per hour. So we wouldn't recommend the installation of speed humps because we don't think that it would decrease the speed significantly from where it is right now.
okay. Well, I do thank you for going out and doing the evaluation, because I continue to get calls for up there. And I think part of it is exacerbated because of that odd little circle there.
Right.
That people zip up to and then get messed up in, or they zip down to the gate. So I'll be filing a couple other orders to try to.
So I remember a year or so ago, we had that meeting, and we presented a rotary, turning that island into a rotary to try to control traffic around it. And we were going to paint the lines first before we actually did construction to see what the public reaction was to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good plan to do that first.
So we still plan to do that. We've just recently gotten back into painting and we're doing crosswalks.
All right,
now.
excellent, because there's like some that are like practically
Yeah.
disappeared, which I'm sure you know.
So as, once we get done with the crosswalks, then I intend to get out here to paint that rotary.
Okay, great. Do you have a timeline on the crosswalks? And I'm only asking because I know everybody's getting asked about these kinds of things.
I don't. I'm not sure how much longer it'll be.
Before you can
Have-
start or before?
No, we have started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have been working on crosswalks.
Oh, okay.
In the city. We try to do the school routes first
Okay,
before we get deeper into neighborhoods. I think we're almost finished with the school routes.
okay. That's helpful.
But as far as a timeline on when we'll be done with the crosswalks.
No, I just
don't
didn't
have that.
know, you know, anything was happening
Yeah.
yet. So, thank you. All right.
I just asked a question about,
Yeah, Councilor.
and this is just so I get a better understanding. So I noticed as the second or third time speed bumps and the 85% statistic was listed. So is that a state gauge or is that?
It's an industry standard. There's a guideline called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Okay.
And that's the guideline for installing 3-way stops, 4-way stops, traffic signals, speed humps is in their traffic calming measures. And the guideline is that if the 85th percentile speed, and the way it's calculated is you start with your slowest speed, and as you increase, and when you do a traffic count, right, you're measuring cars and the speed that they're going over a period of time, and then you collect and sort all of those individual cars and the velocity, the speed that they're going, and the sum total would be 100% of all of the vehicles, and you essentially sort it by speed with the slowest at the top and the fastest at the bottom, and then where you get to 85% of all of your vehicles, that's the speed, that's the 85th percentile.
Okay.
And what it is it kind of says that 85% is the majority of the vehicles that were recorded, and that's the speed that the majority of the vehicles were either going at or slower.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I'm not necessarily assuming that you have this with you now, but if part of this was the count up there, just separately, I would just be interested in knowing, how much traffic's going up there, if that was part of it.
That is, it does make a count. The recorder measures that as well, so I can get that information.
That would be great. It just helps me in giving the neighbors feedback.
Right, so they might think that there's 2,000 trips a day.
Right.
In reality, there's only 500 or 600
Right,
trips.
but the perceptions, it just takes one or
Yes.
two situations which
Right.
create a strong impression sometimes. So, thank you. So, on this, I would entertain a motion that this has been complied with.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye. The motion carries. I'll entertain a motion on item 4.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, filed by Counselor Leahy, ordered that the city engineer research if a 4-way stop sign is needed at the intersection of Race Street and Dwight Streets. There's been a lot of accidents in this area for the last couple of years. Please have results back to the Public Safety Committee within 30 business days.
So again, this was Bob, and as he says, the DPW, we've reviewed the accident history at this intersection, and we agree that accidents have increased. And if you look at the period of 2013 to 2018, there were 12 accidents. And in the last 10 months, there's been 8 accidents. So there is an increase in accidents. The next paragraph speaks to 2 construction projects that are ongoing in the area right now. One is the Dwight Front and Heritage Street construction project, and the other is the Lyman Street Bridge project, which when that gets into full construction, Lyman Street will be closed. And the detour is to go along Ray Street to Dwight Street. It'll be pushing a lot more traffic onto Dwight Street and Ray Street. And we reached out to DOT and we said, what do you think would be appropriate at this intersection, given the accidents? And at the time Bob wrote this, we were still waiting to hear back from them. But after around 5:30 today,
Timing is everything.
yeah, we got a note from DOT that their recommendation will likely be to install a four-way stop at this intersection.
So could we just go ahead and do it?
We could. Bob and I want to see. We got an email say, hey, it looks like we're going to recommend a four-way stop.
Oh, okay.
So we'd like to see the report because DOT's consultant that was working on the Lyman Street Bridge did a traffic analysis, and they said, yeah, a four-way stop might be warranted there.
Okay.
We want to see that
I understand
and just confirm. But if that's the case, what I would recommend is that by the next full council meeting, we might be able to get the ordinance language to you to.
So we should table it and then,
Well, if you table it,
Oh,
then
no,
you
we
have
could-
to wait until the next ordinance
so you're
committee.
suggesting we approve it and that if everything comes together, then we would move it to legal or out of legal?
Out of legal and maybe even vote on it
Okay,
at that meeting.
okay.
No.
Counselor Lisi?
I think if you want legal language, we need to have the report. So I think we would have to accept it in the next ordinance committee meeting, and that would be a table. But, we could figure that out in a minute. Just curious if they're recommending a four-way stop as a temporary solution while the construction's happening, or a four-way stop is something that is more permanent, given the traffic flow in the area as it is.
So they'll likely say that it's during construction because of the increased volumes. We did look at the traffic counts along Ray Street and Dwight Street, and back to that MUTCD, there's what's called a warrant analysis for a four-way stop. And it looks at a couple different conditions that should be met before a four-way stop is recommended. One of those is that both approaches have an equal volume of traffic. And if, when you have a road with, let's say, 2,000 trips a day and another crossing road that has 20 trips per day,
Right.
it wouldn't make sense to put a four-way stop there. But if both roads have 2,000 trips per day, then it would make sense because there would be more conflicts of traffic. Ray Street had a slightly less traffic volume than Dwight Street. So you could kick it into engineering judgment and say it's close enough that it would be worth keeping a four-way stop.
Okay. So then, in that case, would it be a recommendation that we entertain the motion to put it in ordinance, considering that it would likely remain permanent, given there's more development down there and it's anticipated that the volume will continue to increase, or treat it as a temporary thing that then wouldn't go into ordinance?
I mean, you could have it as a permanent four-way stop. The construction's going to be going on for 2 years.
Okay, so that would be your recommendation at this time?
Yeah, and you can always
Okay.
revisit it at a later time.
All right, Counselor Murphy?
I mean, I certainly would go along with the four-way stop, but I'm just wondering in terms of the accidents, and I'm gonna speculate that most of the accidents have occurred from people coming on Ray Street, going south towards Dwight Street and hitting the cars. Would I be correct in that?
I think it's mostly people on Ray Street going north towards Main Street. You know, if you're going north, there's the little
Yeah,
turnoff.
so you're talking about race going, okay.
I think people are continuing through on
Without
Ray
stopping?
Street going to, yeah.
Only reason I say that is because that's how I come to City Hall, and every time I come, there's always somebody looking to get through that, going south.
Going south, yeah.
That's why I thought, and they don't look like they want to stop, so.
Going south, it's difficult because there's a fence over the canal, and it's a large fence. And where the stop bar is behind a crosswalk, which isn't right at the intersection. There's still a couple more feet until you get to the intersection. So if you stop at the stop bar and you try to look up Dwight Street, look up the hill, you can't really see people coming. So you have to inch forward and inch forward, and there might be a perception that no one's coming because you don't see anybody coming. But my understanding is the people that are blowing through this stop sign are ones that are going north.
Okay.
All right, so the chair is willing to entertain a motion relative to DPW's recommendation that we adopt a four-way stop.
I'll make a motion, we accept the recommendation and establish a four-way stop at Race and Dwight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, and we'll send this to legal, and if it's ready, it'll be at council. Thank you very much.
Motion, we take up item 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Filed by Counselor Murphy, ordered that the city establish a school safety zone in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 18B as follows: to establish a 20-mile-per-hour safety zone in the vicinity of the Dean's School and Athletic Field on Main Street, beginning 100 feet northerly of the school property and extending a quarter of a mile, 0.25 miles to the south in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 18B. And if I read the news correctly, this is timely and
Yeah.
not surprising, based on your concerns.
Yes. So if I can on this.
Counselor Murphy?
First of all, I'd like to thank Crystal, Mike, and Bob for guiding me on this, and as I understand it, we're very close to being able to do it. And it is a safety zone and not a school zone. I've gotten a little different definition, which makes it a little bit more enforcing all day long rather than just during the school day. And it's also my understanding that we just had an accident this Saturday where somebody lost their life, and I haven't got the report in terms of what happened, but I'm willing to bet speeding played a role.
So unfortunate.
And there are so many other times that have been so close. And if this can slow, and I also like the way it's lined up so that we now have, the Youth Baseball League has worked with Dean to build a baseball field and they were gonna try to be part of the, Little League World Series people. So their goal is to have an actual Little League team playing at Dean, which means that we're getting younger kids playing there and coming out, and they're getting into their parents' cars right there. So it would start right at St. Vincent Street, and I also talked to Marquardt Ford, who also has had some major close calls since they went across on both sides of the street, and they are absolutely in favor of this as a safety issue, both for them and their customers, as well as for the people at the school in the neighborhood. So again, I want to thank all parties concerned, and I do hope that this can get adopted as a safety zone. And it's my understanding that the equipment is on order, and I was told maybe 5 or 6 weeks to be installed. So hopefully mid-October, it's there. So thank you.
And I just want to say that we express our sympathies to the family of that unfortunate loss of life, and hopefully we can improve this area for everybody.
Thanks for that, Linda. I do want to add one more thing.
Counselor Leahy?
So again, I just want to know if these, the radar warning signs are going to be there permanently, or if they're going to be temporary.
No, they'll be permanent. And these are, I'd say, the Cadillac of the radar warning signs. So it'll be a school zone with a flashing yellow light. It'll be the radar display of the speed, and also a report if somebody is going faster, where the screen will flash.
It's really do work,
Yep.
because it's the immediate feedback.
Great, thank you.
And it'll be on both sides of the zone.
And
And one thing with the difference between a safety zone and a school zone is there's a lot more criteria for a safety zone. It's difficult to say this area justifies a safety zone. You need more, not round the clock, but a longer time period of use of the place. So schools are typically, school zone is just while school is in session. But since Dean has activities after school, it has a lot of recreation on the other side of the street, after hours and on weekends, we were able to justify it as a safety zone. So to take this and say somewhere like another school, I'll just use Blessed Sacrament School as an example because, you know, I think Blessed Sacrament, they're in school and then they're gone. I don't think you would be able to justify Blessed Sacrament as a safety zone.
So you're saying it's a fairly high hurdle, so.
Yes, yeah. But there are things like nursing homes or other healthcare facilities where you could say this is a safety zone because of the, you know, the use. It's not just limited to schools.
Set.
I'll
Entertain a motion?
make a motion that we adopt it and send it to the law department to draw in legal form and get the signs up in October.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Make a
Item
motion, we
6.
take item 6 off the
Motion
table.
take off the table. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Filed by me that no parking signs be replaced on Homestead Ave between Kane and Pinchin Roads on the school side of Homestead Ave and added as a city ordinance. The reason I filed the order this way is because I know a few years ago the signs got put up, but I don't think it ever got put in ordinance. And then when they replaced all the telephone poles, they all went away. And so what happens, and it never returned to exactly the levels that it had been, but people straddle the curb and they end up with wheels on the sidewalk. So I thought it might just be prudent to make it more formal.
So the language is there for the signs, and if you guys approve the language, we'll put the signs in.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Yep, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. On to item 7.
Make a motion, we take that off the table for discussion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item 7, filed by Counselor Bartley, ordered that Section 86-322, Schedule 1A C3 be amended to amend the parking fees for special events in the city. Counselor Bart? Mike?
And so I think Councilor Bartley and Crystal did a good job drafting the revised ordinance language. We have, there's 2 events where there could be a need for parking downtown outside of the normal business day, which is the St. Patrick's Day Parade weekend and Celebrate Holyoke weekend.
Language.
So we could charge, event parking rates.
Okay, so I'm just missing the language. If anybody,
Should be in Bob's thing here. At the back.
It just says.
wait a minute.
On page 2.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
I see it. Sorry.
no, I didn't.
Okay. Oh, all right. I was thinking we already had the $5 fee in place.
There is a $5 fee in the ordinance. What this would do is allow the fee to be increased.
Okay,
And for road race weekend in particular, we were charging $5 at the garages, and lots further away from the event, we're charging $10
okay,
or more. So
okay.
this would be a way to increase revenue.
So this is easy. We already have the legal form. So I'll entertain a motion.
Receive and, adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll entertain a motion on item 10.
A motion to take up item number 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 10, filed by Counselor Leahy, ordered that the city engineer research and provide the council with recommendations for how to change the ordinances related to downtown parking so that business and residential needs can be best met.
Under
Counselor
discussion.
Lisa?
Thanks. So we had a number of fairly contentious, like residential parking situations come up, as well as some other contentious residential versus downtown business parking needs. And I think we're just at a point where there's more activity happening downtown, and we need to be able to accommodate both the downtown businesses and downtown residents. I think we're also seeing an increase in downtown residency as well. So I asked Bob if he could do some research to see how other communities deal with downtown parking, if they have resident only or permits or what. And what I'm reading from the report here is that there's research being done. Different communities are doing it differently, and that Bob's still in the process of doing some research to figure out what would be the best fit for our particular needs. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty much a good synopsis, that everybody does it their own way. There's a local flair to how resident-only parking and business parking. One thing that's not in here is that in 2012, there was a downtown parking study that was done in the city. It was looking more in the business district, and the results of the study was that there's plenty of parking spaces in the downtown area. They're just not where people want to be.
Oh,
So
irony.
there's parking, there's on-street parking, but it's 3 or 4 blocks from where you want to be. And I have the feeling that it's the same thing with the resident parking, where we have a number of blocks where there aren't residences, where there is open overnight on-street parking. It's just not in front of the people's houses.
So it's a convenience issue.
Yeah, it is a convenience issue, but convenience is also
Relative.
unnecessary at times.
Right.
And the residents that came in, they would talk about when they've got a carload of groceries,
Right.
or children, and
Right.
everything else that goes along with it. So
Right.
I definitely recognize there is a convenience to having parking in front of your house. But we're still kind of evaluating.
Yeah, I'll be interested in hearing, what our city engineer recommends in the end, and like the logic behind it, I think is going to be important to understand. So I'll be interested in hearing how he's putting things together. Thanks.
So
Motion
we'll
to
table it till we can get more information. Is there a
Yeah,
second?
it'll probably be for some time also.
I'm sorry?
Probably be for several months that we'll be tabling.
What are you thinking? I mean, because I give Ryan an idea so we don't lose it in the.
6 months? 4?
I'd say 3.
3?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 3 or 4
December or January? Let's say January.
months.
Okay, so is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Item 2, I'm leaving on the table, because I think the person who is most interested in it would have been here if she realized it was going on. So
She
we'll
would like to
save it,
contribute.
yeah, for a future date. So, on the motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Finally, we get out before we're all exhausted.